came about. As I just said, some Nigerians said, what's the point? You already have a Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, and all along, even at the time the ministry was known as Agriculture and Rural Development, there was a department under agriculture which catered to the needs of livestock and all that. So why did it become so necessary to now create a separate ministry?
Thank you, Cyril. A lot of concerns or discussions came around after the creation of the Federal Ministry of Livestock Development by the current administration. However, yes, from 1960 till this ministry was created, there hasn't been a dedicated ministry for livestock at the federal level. And even at the subnational governments, not more than 2 or 3 state governments have created such a ministry. However, yes, like you rightly pointed out, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security had 2 departments relevant to the livestock sector. These are veterinary services and animal husbandry. And along the line, certain changes in the realities of national development has happened. And elsewhere, if you look at other countries where a particular focus has been given to livestock, the transformation has been very tremendous. The role of livestock in food security, national food security and safety, the issue of, again, contribution to the GDP, simply because that greater focus did a lot of transformative measures to upgrade the performance of the livestock sector in terms of productivity, sustainability, job creation, poverty reduction, etc., etc. And the modernization in those lands and climes where the minister has been given a greater focus, and in which also they were far less endowed than Nigeria, the contribution was very, very significant. And therefore, again, if you look at the statistics of families where you've had livestock in this country, it's overwhelming. In fact, in all the rural areas and semi-urban settlements, including the suburbs in Abuja and major cities in this country today, you find a lot of the families. And again, looking at the value of the livestock in Nigeria, which is put at about 33 trillion naira, without, a focus, a dedicated focus, talks much about our own concern on that sector. It employs millions of Nigerians. It contributes significantly to the food national security. Animal source protein in terms of meat, eggs, and meat, as well as poverty reduction and employment generation, are quite huge in that sector. And therefore, the creation of the ministry is actually a right move by the president, very, very strategic in nature, the first of its kind since the independence of this country. And over the years, many of us practitioners, our players in the livestock sector, have yearned for and made concerted efforts to dialogue with past federal governments, administrations, to make sure that, to ensure that we have had that ministry. Because again, like I said, if you look at other areas where livestock has been given that greater focus, the contribution of that sector is quite phenomenal, as opposed to where we haven't had that ministry, like in the case of Nigeria. And therefore, by all standards, the ministry has come at the right time, and it is actually, like I said, going to address a number of issues that are today bedeviling the agricultural sector in general.
Well, Minister, that puts it in perspective. But again, I'm sure you probably were made aware at the start of it all from some of the skeptics who tended to see a Federal Ministry of Livestock Development as basically established for the purposes of cattle. But livestock is much more beyond just cattle. So put for us, what's captured?
Skeptics, of course, they have the right to be skeptic about this. But again, it is livestock. The reason why people just, narrowly focus it on cattle is because they are the most visible in our countryside. And for most of the crises that we're having today, security-related, breakdown of confidence and trust between farmers and herders, etc., is only focused on cattle. But by definition, the Ministry of Livestock is responsible for all farmable animals. If you look at animals in general, you have game animals that are in the forest, wild animals. These are not under the purview of the ministry. You have companion animals, pets, and etc. These are not strictly under the Ministry of Livestock. What the Ministry of Livestock is concerned about is all farmable animals. And we start from honeybee, we go to grass cutter, rabbitry, piggery, poultry, sheep, goat, camels, donkeys, horses, and cattle. All these are under the purview of the ministry, and these are farmable animals. And therefore, there is no discrimination whatsoever as to what the ministry is going to do to turn around the fortunes of all these species that I have mentioned. And therefore, again, we are also concerned about the value chains that are going to come out of those ministries by unlocking that sector. And these, gradually, we will have the opportunity to delve into those and tell Nigerians the hidden opportunities that are in those species that I have just mentioned. But for all intent and purposes, there is no singular isolation of any of those species to say that, look, the ministry is not going to deal with this, or is only going to deal with those. They are all farmable animals. They all come under the purview of the ministry, and they all make their own respective contribution in terms of economic growth, job opportunities, poverty reduction,